Alex. Thank you for sharing. We love all things related to cats, animals, and pizza. Do you have any good pictures? Oh, there we go. Excellent. Hi, Pizza Cat. Thank you so much for sharing. I don't know about anybody else, but I am happier the more animals I see every day. So anyone else wants to share an animal, please feel free. I love that background. I see lots of cats and pizzas floating in the background. So we should officially get started. On behalf of the DaSy webinar team, want to say thank you so much for coming here this afternoon to listen to part 2 of Weight Compliance. And I am very thankful to introduce you to my wonderful colleague, Cecilia Leher, who will be facilitating the presentation today. My name is Andrea Schombacher. I will be checking the chat, and I will be facilitating and supporting Cecilia throughout the presentation. So we encourage everybody to please feel free to put questions in the chat. We will do our best to address them and make sure that before you leave this webinar, you have all of your questions answered.
Well, as much as we can.
As much as we can.
Andrea will help me, and as will the rest of our wonderful DaSy staff and team members, because if there are specific questions that you have for OSEP, we will be gathering those and connecting with them and letting them know that you have these questions, and we'll try to figure out a way to get those answers back to you.
Great. I think we're ready to begin.
Great. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. And let me know, are you seeing the PowerPoint? Okay, perfect. I'm actually going to do something that in my Zoom webinar I told you guys never ever to do, which is turn off, as a presenter, turn off your camera. I have multiple screens going, and I'm a little nervous about where I'm going to be looking when, so I don't want to be a distraction. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my camera. So do as I have said before, not as I do. And thank you all very much. We are actually going to start with just a few housekeeping items. We are going to be looking at accessibility from the point of view of a variety of Microsoft Office systems today. And in our previous webinar in December, we looked at accessibility through the lens of Word. And today we're going to look at Excel and a little bit of PowerPoint, and then PDFs. That's just, you know, a little context. And then if you could remain muted during our presentation, and then add any questions that you have to the chat, and I will try to do my best to keep us on time so that we have time to make sure that we answer your questions. I'd like for us to tailor this presentation to your needs. And so to that point, I wanted to start with a small poll. I just want to be able to understand sort of what your needs are on the call today. And so I want to know if you were able to attend the session on accessibility in December, and then some information around your use of PDFs, so that I know how in depth I need to go to in that third section. And so Renee, if you wouldn't mind sharing the poll, and Andrea, if you could help me moderate the poll, please.
Absolutely. All right, so let's answer that first question. Let's find out who attended the first session on accessibility in December. And Renee, I'm going to ask, can you see the number of participants coming in, answering the poll?
I can. We're about 82%.
Okay, great. Give everybody 30 more seconds. Okay. So when we look at the poll, Renee, can you tell us or show the results? There we go. So it looks like, Cecilia, we have 55% of participants today who have attended the first session in December and 45% of attendees who did not attend the first session.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. And let's move on to that second question. The question is, do you often create PDFs to share information with stakeholders electronically or to post on the website? We'll take a couple of seconds if you would please answer that question. Alex says maybe too many. Give those responses a couple more seconds to come in. And then Renee, if you would share them out. Once 85, 90%, awesome. So it looks like we have 80% of our participants who answered yes, they often create PDFs to share information with stakeholders electronically, and 20% of you do not. Let's go with question number 3. So for those of you who are creating PDFs, what PDF creation software do you have access to? Give that a couple of seconds. And then Renee, if you would share the results, that'd be great. Okay, 64% of those of us who are creating PDFs are using Adobe Pro. We have nobody on the webinar using Common Look. 8% are using something else, another. 10% are using none, and 18% of us are not sure. So it looks like the majority are using Adobe Pro. And then there's some questions about the creation software. And on to our last question, our last poll. Renee, if you could release number 4. If you don't have PDF creation software, how do you currently create PDFs? Okay, let's take a look at those responses now. We have the majority, 69% are saving as PDF. We have 26% that are printing to PDF, and then 6% that responded other, Cecilia.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to go through and answer the poll. It really helps me identify what areas of our presentation I need to spend more time on today. So I have kind of 3 distinct areas of slides. I have some slides regarding the law and the standards. and then also the 7 core components for creating accessible documents, and then and how to tell. And then I have another section just on PDF. So I'm going to take a minute here to kind of think about how I can make this the best experience for you today. There are some slides that I am not going to spend a lot of time on, and I will let you know what those are. What I want to make sure is that for each of those 3 sections that I mentioned, that you leave here today with some actionable things. You will have access to the set of slides, and if there was a section that I didn't go into too much today, I will actually go back and try to add some tutorials from the web, or some short videos, and attach those to the PDF, so that if there's something that I didn't go into too much today that you want more information about, you have the ability to do that. And so having said that, let's dive in. Now, 508 compliance is very much at the top of everyone's mind right now, particularly because we're doing so much electronically, and it is really considered to be a basic human right. I mean, in order for people to fully participate in this ever-increasing world of technology and remote learning and remote working, we must be sure that we create things in ways that are accessible to everyone, so that everyone feels and has the ability to participate at an equal level, regardless of whether that is a disability or just a circumstance. Many of us are familiar with the advantage of having buildings that are built to code for people with disabilities, and can take use of ramps, like when we are dragging something with wheels, or need to take our shopping cart to the car. So likewise, when we are building things and sharing things electronically, websites, tools, apps, documents, we want to make sure that everyone has, whether it is because of a disability or a particular circumstance in their life, that they have access to that information. And so what you can see here is that in this slide is that there are specific ways, some that are assistive technology tools, such as screen readers or adapted joysticks or keyboards, that have been created for people with specific disabilities, and others in that last column, that document creation column, that are available within the tool that we author itself. So our abilities to ensure that we have alternate text descriptions, those are things that we have control over, and that we'll be diving into some more. And so in terms of digital accessibility, there's a variety of laws that guide what we have to do. And today we're really going to be focusing on Section 508, which is, I think, what a lot of us have heard about. And we're going to talk a little more about what that means. But in addition to the laws, there's also some corresponding standards that help us understand it. And so with Section 508 specifically, it is the law that says that all of our forward-facing technology, websites, electronic documents, PDFs, must be accessible. So this is what holds us to the standard that we must do this. And this was a law that is Section 508, actually, of, sorry here, let me, Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. So this has been, the Rehabilitation Act has been around since 1973. The Section 508 portion has been around since 1998. And it was revised in 2017 to include the standards of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So I'm trying to think if we could think of an analogy with our IDEA work with Part C or Part B. The law, IDEA, the indicators tell us what we are responsible to do, what we are being graded on, and what we are being held to, what families can take us to due process for if we don't abide by. So that is Section 508. The law is what gives this this basic human right the teeth to make sure that people are actually creating this way. The standards are the how. And so beginning in 2017, Section 508, Congress essentially, since it is a law, adopted this protocol as a way to identify, well, what does it mean? When we say that you're 508 compliant, what is it that we are looking for? What's the criteria? And so that's how the two work hand in hand. Section 508 is the thing that says that you must be compliant, and the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, is what defines what that looks like. And these standards or protocol is created by a consortium of people who are the ones responsible for web creation. So let's think about that as with our English language and grammar. All of us speak English, but you can look on the web and say, should I use a serial comma or no, and get two different answers. Well, you can build a website using a language called HTML. And there's a variety of ways that you can build the same website. There's this consortium called the World Wide Web Consortium, and they came together and they put the protocol together to say, of these many different ways that you could do it, this is the standardized way. And so they have been the ones that have taken on this role of putting together the guidelines of what is expected for 508 compliance. And so when we are looking at what that means, it says that the change that happened in 2017 is that 508 compliance means that you are actually compliant with the WCAG standards, and specifically to level AA. So I think we sometimes err on the side of saying, well, am I 508 compliant, and expect a yes or a no answer. And actually, it's a continuum. And so as you can see in this slide, there is one of the tools that we'll be looking at today that allows you to see if the color contrast that you have conforms, and gives you gives you an accessible image. You can see that there's minimum, a level AA, a level AAA. So it's telling you sort of at different levels whether it's passing or not passing. And so what you need to know in terms of when you are selecting a tool or looking to understand whether your document is accessible, you need to build, in order to be 508 compliant, you need to build to level AA. And so the takeaway for this that I want you to think about is that the standards are ever changing. And so right now we're already up to 2.1 of the standards, and they're getting ready to do another revision. 508, which is the law, Section 508, says that it's been written in the law that we must be compliant to WCAG 2.0 levels. And as you know, it takes a while to get changes in the law made. So the standards might evolve faster than what the law says. And so what you want to make sure is that you're always building and aware of the latest version of the standards, even though the law itself may be referring you to a previous version. And so with these standards, the principles that guide how these standards are put together is that electronic tools and information must be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And we're going to go a little bit further into what that means a little later. But essentially, it addresses how people are able to perceive, see and interact with what is on the screen. Operable, that they are actually able to maneuver through it, that they can understand how it is structured. Understandable, that it is not confusing to people in whatever electronic document you have. And robust refers to the fact that it must be built in such a way that the back end of the document or tool is compatible with other tools, including the assistive technology tools like screen readers. And so let's look at what that looks like. Now, when I say that the guidelines are built, they were built primarily or initially to address communication and documents that are shared via the web. So we won't go into what the website looks like, or how to maneuver the website, because if you're not a developer, you don't need to go into this level. But I just wanted to give you an idea of how comprehensive these standards are. And essentially, what we will be looking at today is how to distill from these standards what you as creators in Microsoft Office documents need to be aware of and know in order to be compliant. There are some supports that have been given to us. If you are completing ESIP and APR SPP reports, there are some templates that have been provided for you, and it is the expectation of OSEP that you would actually use those templates and not use any documents that that you have created in-house. These templates that they're providing, well, I should say for ESIP, there is a Word and a PDF version that you would complete. For the APR and SPP, there is an online system where you would put in your information. And it is only in the event that you are adding information in addition to the online template or the PDF template for the ESIP reports that you would then need to ensure that the documents that you're sending to OSEP also have are also accessible. There are there's some guidelines, some guides rather, that have been put together by the federal government for each of the tools for PowerPoint, Excel, and Word that take you through how to format and what you need to do within your documents to make them accessible. So that is an additional resource, and I'm displaying here what it looks like, and we'll be looking at that as well as we continue through our day-to-day. But that is, you can reach those resources through this link once you download the PowerPoint. So the takeaway here is that for your ESIP reports, you're going to be using the templates provided by OSEP. The APR and SCP reports, you're going to be using the online template. There is a template online that will help you gather the information. And that is what this link will take you to. So it is not the reports that you would use to send in your information to OSEP. It is just to help you kind of put your information together. And so as you are searching the web for specific information or ideas or supports, you may find some conflicting information. Whereas you're wondering if something is accessible versus not, you'll see that one person says that you must do this for accessibility, and another web source will say, never ever, you don't have to worry about it. The reason for that, again, is because accessibility is a continuum. And so in order to answer, is this thing accessible, you must actually ask the question, to what level of accessibility is this resource guiding me to? So again, we're looking for level AA. And so the best and most trusted resources for if you're looking for those kinds of concrete questions, or how am I supposed to do this to an accessible standard, look for resources or web pages that are from these websites. WebAIM and WC3 again are those folks who are directly responsible for creating the standards. So you would know that any information that comes from these guys can be trusted. Okay, so what you should be aware of by now in terms of where we are in our presentation is the difference between Section 508 and the WCAG, and how 508 compliance is determined. And again, Section 508 is the law that says that we must build in an accessible format. WCAG is the standard that tells us what that actually looks like, and actually goes through and says, if you have a document, it must have a title, it must have headings, it must have document properties. If you have an image, it must have alt, a description of alt images, and it must look like this. If you are using color, it must have, there must be a ratio of the contrast between the color in the foreground and the color in the background so that it is legible. So again, that is, that's the difference between these two and how they work jointly to help us answer the question whether something is accessible. And so 508 compliance is a continuum, and it is determined by looking at the criteria set out in the principles of WCAG. Any questions about that before I move on here?
Cecilia, there was one question in the chat I did write a response to, but the question is, from Marilyn, should we comply with the evolving standards?
And I presume that means whether we should comply with 2.1 or 2.0. The law right now says 2.0. My recommendation is to, as much as possible, to comply with 2.1, and they actually do not replace one another. They build on. So it is not that 2.1 looks at 2.0 and goes, oh, what the heck were we thinking? Let's change that all up. It is more that as more technology becomes more ubiquitous, they've expanded the things that may not have been covered. So 2.1, for example, goes into a lot of depth in terms of mobile usage. And so websites, as you know, sometimes don't look great when you view them on a tablet or your phone. Well, they now have some standards about how to, what the expectation is in terms of accessibility when you build a website, and what it must, what the corresponding site on a tablet or your phone must look like. So that is an example of how we would want to ensure that we're keeping up with 2.1. And again, the takeaway here and what you need to know about this, I would say, is we often get questions when we recommend a tool. We hear the question, well, is this tool accessible? Many websites and many tools have as part of their their website and the information they provide, an accessibility statement. And so it'll tell you that what they're striving, and let me make sure you can see that. Here, you know, my healthcare provider's website and presumably their mobile tool is trying to adhere to the standards of W 2.0 conformance level A and level 2AA, which means for some things on their website, they're only conforming to level A, some things to level AA, again, speaking to that continuum. And so if you are looking, you know, for new tools, new database, new resources for data visualization, and you're wondering if something is accessible, then you're going to want to see that company or that website's or that vendor's accessibility statement. And you want to make sure that you understand what it says. And so it's not that I expect you to have the same knowledge as a developer in terms of what these standards are, but I do want you to be able to know enough to ask the right questions and to understand the answer when it's given to you. Now, if you are creating documents in Microsoft Office tools, Word, Excel, or PowerPoint, these are the 7 things that you must really consider and think about and make sure that you are doing correctly whenever you're authoring. So regardless of where you're authoring, these are the things that you must think about. And so document properties. We're talking about how the document is configured, the title. And so in Excel specifically, you want to make sure that you are saving things as an Excel workbook. So .xlsx in Word, there's it used to be .doc. I forget what it's currently. I guess I should just open this up. Save as, doc with an X at the end. So you see you have a lot of different options in terms of how you can save something. And so you just, if you need it to be accessible, in order for it to be accessible, it must be this doc.x, you know, doc with .docx, or Excel workbook.xlsx. It's often the very first option here in how you save something. You also want to make sure that you are quite descriptive with your documents. So this is online referral data, July 2020 through December 2020. You know, so in addition to how you name it, you particularly for Excel documents, you also want to make sure that you have given a name to each of the sheets, and that again, that name is very specific and very very obvious to the reader. And so selected counties. You also want to make sure that you have the document properties set. So in File Info under Properties, Advanced Properties, under the Summary tab, you will want to enter the title exactly as it is the title of the document that you've saved, the subject, the author, the company, and then you can also add category and keywords. In the Custom tab, you can also add the language. You can also do that under review and not the not translate, but in Word documents, there's also the ability to add language under review. Now, why would you do that? At the beginning of today's discussion, we talked about how the WCAG standards have 4 overriding principles, one of which is that it must be robust, that it must be able to connect to other types of documents, easily convert to other types of documents or tools, including assistive technology tools. So the way that the document is structured, if you have an assistive technology tool such as a screen reader, it is going to look for that information. And if it doesn't have it, it's going to cause issues in it being able to connect well and to function well. So the other thing that is, yes.
I apologize for interrupting. We've had a request to make the screen larger so people can see, but I also want to just remind everybody about this is, you know, mock data and not, yeah. So
Yeah.
just realizing that this is an example. Can everybody see the numbers from audiologist on? Okay.
Great, thank you, Andrea. The other thing to consider is in how how easy it is to navigate through the content that you have. Last time we really focused a lot on Word, and this time I want to talk about some of the differences for some of the things that we saw in our last session that are specific to Excel. Now, in your data tables, when we last were working in Word, I talked about how important it was to structure your tables well. And what I meant by that was first of all, that if you're working in Word, that you would create the table by going to Insert Table, and that you would make sure that you would select one of your rows as your header table. So that was in Word. In Excel, you want to do something similar. You want to make sure that you are creating a table from your cells. Now, this is a typical, you know, this is a CSV report that I received from our database. If I were to share this, if I wanted to share this, I would first want to make sure, in order for it to be accessible, to insert table, having my cursor somewhere in the cell area. I would also want to make sure that I select my table has headers. And so this now gives me headers, much like I was mentioning to you in Word last time, that any table that you create, you must also make sure that there is a header row that has been identified. So now we've created a table. One of the things that you must be aware of when working with any of the Microsoft Office tools is that just because it is an embedded theme in terms of colors and how things are formatted, just because it's embedded in Microsoft doesn't automatically make it accessible. And so here we see that this white title on a very light blue background, you can hardly see that. And WCAG does have some expectations in terms of how you do that. And so there is an online tool that you can download, and I'm waiting for it to come up. It is the color analyzer. This is one that I particularly like, but there is a slide in the PowerPoint deck that shows you 4 different options. But this is essentially what you want to do with any color contrast tool, whether it's online or something like this that you can download. You want to be able to select your background color and your foreground color, and then see, it tells you that you have failed, that this does not meet the contrast ratio. And you can see that it is also telling you for regular text and large text. So that means that sometimes the color contrast might be enough if you have a heading and it's a really large large section, it might stand out enough. But if you are looking at it in terms of regular text, it isn't. The colors need to have more contrast to them. And so see, here's a contrast ratio. Essentially what you need to do once you have this happen is you want to be able to identify or find a color that is going to have more contrast. And so here's one, and I won't bore you with going through all trial and error. One of the resources, and I believe Alex, thank you, in the chat, she has shared with us the WebAIM tool, and I think this is the one. I think that not only does it tell you if it passes or fails, you can then adjust. So if it fails, then you can adjust the slider to find one that passes, and then you can take that the identified code and bring that back to be able to select, to enter in, hey, this is the, now you know which one passes. So you have that not only telling you have that tool that not only tells you whether it passes, but also you can easily then find one that does pass if it wasn't the case. And this is again something that you want to do not just for tables, but also, if I can, anything in your PowerPoint, any images, colors within your graphs, for example. So regarding tables, the other thing that you want to know is that we really shouldn't have any empty rows like this. As the screen reader is reading this information, they will read the header, then they will read down down each row. And so if there's no information, it could sound like Allegheny 11. And so you want to make sure that all of your cells have information, or perhaps it's not applicable, or information unknown. Whatever it is, you want to make sure that there's information in each cell. You also want to make sure that you don't create rows or cells that are merged together. And so, for example, if I wanted to have just a list, it's not going to let me do that, is it? There are times when we see a table that has one major section. It's merged information, and then the columns across the left. You want to make sure to avoid doing that. It means then that the table is no longer a simple table and it becomes a complex table. And again, if you one of the resources in the slide deck that you'll see is a video that was on YouTube of a screen reader, an example of what a screen reader sounds like when it's reading a document. And I do urge you to take some time. It's about 2 minutes long, to take some time and just kind of listen to that, because I think it helps to hear what you're trying, what the screen reader is going to have to do, how it interprets, how it's thinking about information, to just kind of cement for you what makes sense, so that this becomes second nature to you. The other thing that we want to talk about and think about, when you create a table, you may want to, from that table, you may want to create some charts. And again, this is, don't worry so much about the information in the chart. Obviously, you're, just good practice. You're going to want to have a nice chart title and, name your axes and all of that. But specifically for accessibility, you want to make sure that you choose to convey information in a variety of ways, and particularly when it comes to color. You want to make sure that color is not the only way that you are representing information. So in this example, it's not too bad, but it's not great. Here my legend is identifying only by color some of these rows. And so a better way to do that would be to go ahead and add the data table, so that if someone does have vision problems and can't differentiate with just by color, they also have the information here at their fingertips. Another way to do that would be to select a table theme that has, in addition to color, some sort of gradient that allows, again, for differentiation between the different rows of data. Something else that you might want to do, depending on the table that you have, you may add the data labels at the end of each row. This, I think, would make it a little too crowded. But it is, again, one of the options that you have. The takeaway being that when you are using charts, whether it is in Word, Excel, or PowerPoint, you want to make sure that you're not using color as your only means of conveying information. And it is also important that you understand that this is an image. And so a screen reader doesn't know what to do with this. They are the screen reader itself, they're able to read a table. A screen reader is not able to read or interpret the information that is found within an image. And so for any image that you have, you must always include alt text, whether that is a chart or it is a picture that you have included. And again, you may not include that in an Excel document, but it really works the same way in a lot of the tools, in that you right-click to find the Edit Alt Text, and when you do that, you will be prompted to enter in information. And so just some common tips. You don't want to start by being redundant. So you wouldn't say this is an image of, or this is a table of, but you want to be descriptive. And so for a chart, you would say this bar chart displays, and then you would want to describe the data that is found within the chart, and any trends, like what is the takeaway. So it is kind of a balancing act between too little or too much information. And I think I really do struggle with writing good alt text descriptions, because I never know, like, did I say too much? But really the rule of thumb is to not, you know, to not repeat every little piece of data that is within your image, but to ensure, like, if someone were reading your document and they for some reason couldn't see this image, what is it you want to tell them about it? If the image is purely decorative, there may be some times when you include an image that is just, you know, let's say that I had here on this slide, you know, a rocket. That's just like celebration, you know, here's the 7 things, here's the 4 components, let's celebrate. And it actually has nothing to do, it's not going to help the person who is who's interacting with this slide. This image isn't helping to explain anything about this information. Then you can label that as a decorative image, and then it doesn't need an alt text. But if it is an image that conveys information, then you must do that. And by the way, that also includes, let's go back to our handy dandy PowerPoint here. That also includes, any smart arts, anything that is one of these beautiful, wonderful tools that Microsoft gives us. Even though there is text here, this as a whole, this smart art is in itself an image. And so a screen reader will not be able to read any of the information that is contained within your smart art. And so I think that that's something, a challenge that we really have to think about when we are creating presentations that will be shared electronically, that will be posted. Because often the reason for us doing these smart art or choosing these smart art tools is so that it can, the information can be grouped in a way that is easy to understand for folks. But if they are unable, if their screen reader is unable to read this information, then you've really undermined your efforts of being more clear. And so some solutions are, again, to be very descriptive in using your alt text, so that when the screen reader gets to this section, they can read the information that is found. And you want to do this if you have, you know, let's say that there's, you know, 3 bullet points. Now, some smart art can get really extensive. And so you can, you know, include almost paragraphs of things. And that is not something that you're going to want to include in your alt text. So again, knowing that any text that is included within a smart art is not going to be accessible, you're going to have to consider whether using a smart art is really the best way forward, or maybe we just revert back to using, you know, some simpler, not as, you know, they're not as beautifully formatted, but you can know that they are for sure going to be accessible. And then again, you can kind of, as your comfort level with accessibility increases, then, you know, you may change your mind in terms of how you approach certain things. So we have talked about the document properties, and again, that is found in the file info section, and it behaves the same way across all of the all of Microsoft tools. Headings and styles is something we actually did not talk about. So let's go back here. We did talk about having a header row within a table itself. However, if you were going to share this, you may want to also include a title to this table. You know, referral numbers, let's say. You're going to want to ensure that you select a title that you format this information by giving it a heading, either one that is already within the predefined section, or you can actually modify. When a document is packaged and is ready for web distribution, the way that a screen reader works is that it is always going to look for a hierarchy, or it's going to try to understand what is this page telling me. So it needs to know, oh, I've got a title, I've got a heading. It's going to look for hierarchy within that document. And so whether you are creating a Word document, or you are creating PowerPoints or Excels, using these styles allows the screen reader to understand the difference between the information that you have. Like, what kind of information is it? Is this the title, or is it just regular text within the body, or is it a section header? So it needs to kind of understand, how am I going to organize this document that I am seeing in order to be able to represent it well to the person who is using the screen reader. And so what that means is that let me see, I think it's in view, looking for the navigation pane. So this document that has been formatted with those styles, a screen reader is essentially understanding that there's different sections to this document, and that each section has a subsection. So it is able to help then the person navigate through the document. And that is the reason that, whether you are doing an Excel document, whatever kind of document you're using, you want to ensure that you are using the headings and styles instead of just selecting something and then changing the font and changing the size or the colors. You want to tell it, why are you doing that? Is this is this a new section that people need to be aware of? And then give it its proper hierarchy in the document. We talked about how to properly format our tables and alt text for images and tables. And then hyperlink. You want to make sure that your hyperlinks are able to stand alone. A screen reader is able to pull out just the hyperlinks. So if someone if as you are looking at this and you don't have a visual impediment, you're quickly able to see, oh, here's 3 items and they're hyperlinks. So the screen reader is essentially trying to do the same thing. And in order for you to do that, that means that you cannot have a hyperlink that is this thing here, or let's be a little, because you would never do that, but download this tool, and then maybe I link just this. So if this is my hyperlink and a screen reader is trying to convey to the person using the screen reader what the links are, it's going to read the word this, which clearly isn't going to be helpful to anyone. And so that is why in writing your hyperlinks, you want to make sure that you are descriptive enough so that people understand what it is that if they click on this, where are they going to go? What is this link for? And so you want to use meaningful text, and you want to make sure that you don't confuse your readers by then underlining and using the same color for something that is not a hyperlink. And then when you create your hyperlink, which you do by selecting the information, then right-clicking and going to link, you add your address, but you also can adjust the text that is visible. So, so here maybe contrast tool. And you can also add, or should also add, a screen tip to describe download contrast tool. And so what you see by adjusting the text to display, when I hit OK, it changed what I highlighted. And when I hover with my mouse over it, it shows me download contrast tool. So that screen tip is almost like a little helper text that tells me even more information. Now, by default, when you create a hyperlink, that screen tip, if you leave it blank, it is at the very least going to show people what the URL is. But again, if you, it is best practice to go ahead and add that screen tip so that it is very, very obvious to the user what they will encounter when they get to when they click on that link. We talked about color contrast, and as you can see, not only is this an important thing to consider because of people who might have a disability, but it's also helpful for everyone. You can see that this is just plain harder to read. So by following these accessibility guidelines, we actually help all of our users. And then the last thing that I want you to be aware of is that all of Microsoft tools come with an accessibility checker. And so if you go to, where's my review? Okay. If you go to the review tab in any of the tools, you will see that there is a prompt to check accessibility. And so you can, when you do that, it is going to give you, let's see if I can make this bigger for everyone. It is going to give you some errors and some warnings. Errors are things that must absolutely be changed and addressed. Warnings are things that if you can address it, you should. Some of the things that may come up in a warning would be like, tab order, reading order, or color contrast. Those are things that the tool itself isn't smart enough to know if it's right or wrong, and so it's just going to give you a warning, like, hey, are you really sure that this is right? And so because of that, although this is if there is nothing else that you do for accessibility, please do this because this is going to get you at least 90% of the way there, if not more. However, I do want to just give you the caveat that the accessibility checker doesn't find absolutely everything, particularly with color contrast. It is something that sometimes, if it's very glaring, it may flag it, but sometimes it doesn't. And so there are some things that you just want to be aware of, which again, in particular, those color contrast tools, I would recommend that you familiarize yourself with them enough. So, you know, after you do this for a bit, you can kind of eyeball it. And not that I'm saying that you should, you know, that you should rely on just intuition, but after a while, you'll be able to tell, like, you know, if this is at least something that's glaring, you know, like at a glance, I can tell, yeah, that's not going to pass. And the more that you run these accessibility checkers, the more things that they'll sort of start becoming second nature to you. It is going to flag things like merged cells. And again, it's a warning because it's telling you, hey, take a closer look. But for anything that it flags as an error or a warning, it is going to give you some recommendations and some explanations. You know, it's going to tell you, here you're missing alternative text, and it's going to tell you what you have to do to fix it. Add a description, and when you click on it, it's going to actually take you to the place where you have to add your description. And so here it's telling you about a merged cell, and if you click on it, it's going to give you some recommended actions, or it's going to tell you, hey, learn some more if you want to understand why is this being flagged. It's going to give you some information here. Why should you fix it, and what steps you can take to fix it. So this accessibility checker is a really great tool to use to ensure that you're doing your best to get the original document to the best condition that it can be. The other tool that I mentioned at the beginning of our work together was these authoring guides and checklists that are provided by the federal government. And so this is, again, a useful secondary source of information. And again, the links are in the PowerPoint for you to download for Excel, Word, PowerPoint, and PDF. And it kind of goes through and tells you, you know, what are the considerations in order to author an Excel or, you know, whatever document in an accessible way. And then it's going to actually, you know, walk you through the steps and give you screenshots. So I did find these guides very, very helpful, and I recommend them highly.
Celia?
Yes.
One quick question through the chat. Rome is asking do we know if the accessibility checkers on Microsoft programs officially meet 508 compliance, or to what level?
So that is a very good question. Microsoft accessibility checkers are not tied to, they're not checking for WCAG level AA. They are essentially taking the principles that I talked about way back at the beginning here. Let me, they're looking for just the very basic of, is it perceivable? You know, like, are there issues with how I have set up the document that would make it hard for somebody to read? It's the accessibility checker, for example, is not going to check on whether I've put in my document properties information. So it, as I mentioned, it is a very good first step in making sure that something is accessible. The next best thing is to take a look at, in addition to the authoring guide, each guide also includes a checklist, and ignore my very crowded system here. See, so these checklists are also really helpful. in reminding you what it is that you need to do to get a document to full accessibility or close to it, as close to it as you can get. And I would say the combination of the two would be what I would recommend for any document that you're authoring. And then the other important thing that I want to bring your attention to is PDFs. And I won't go into too much detail here because I am looking at the time. However, I do have a lot of slides regarding PDF in our PowerPoint. The important thing to note is that not all PDFs are created equal. So once you have a document created and you've checked it against the accessibility, it is a common misunderstanding or misconception. And so, you know, I believe this for, until about 3 weeks ago, that if I had a document that I was fairly sure was, you know, accessible, then all I needed to do was save it as a PDF and I'm good to go. Turns out, not quite. So in Adobe, actually, let me back up just a little bit. If you have Adobe Acrobat Pro, then Microsoft will automatically include this ribbon and allow you to create PDFs by going through this format, which is, if you have this software, is the best way to do it. So again, you would clear up all of your accessibility issues and then save your file and then go to Acrobat, create PDF. If you do not have the Pro version, the next best thing is to save as and then save it as a PDF document. Which is somewhere in here. So I can't find it right now because I want to get to this next piece. Do not ever, 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 ever print to PDF. And so the Acrobat version of the Pro version of Acrobat has its own accessibility checker. And if you create, so this is an example of a PDF same document that I created in 3 different ways. This one I hit print to PDF and then I ran the accessibility checker and it gave me all these different issues. Same exact document, I went online to one of those free, like you can upload your Word document and it spits out a PDF for you. And see, it's basically the same thing as this print to PDF. It is giving me a lot of errors, and these are the things that are, now you've taken your pristine accessible Word or Excel or PowerPoint document, and because of the way that you turned it into a PDF, now it's no longer accessible. And so here's how it looks when, again, same document, I saved it as a PDF. And the issues were, you know, you can see that this is definitely the best way to do it. The print to PDF and the online PDF converter, I would say, you know, don't trust those at all. And then looking at typical issues. Running the accessibility checker in PDF, and again, there'll be a tutorial in the PowerPoint that'll show you how to do that. I won't take the time to do it today. You're always going to get at least 2 document issues, the logical reading order and the color contrast, because these are things that need to be manually checked. So the accessibility tool is already recognizing, yeah, I can't promise that the reading order is correct, and I can't promise that the color contrast, if there's any color, is correct. And in this case, it also found that even though there's clearly a title to this document, it doesn't recognize it as a title. PDFs are not a picture of a document. They're actually, there's coding that just happens automatically when you convert something to PDF. It uses a language similar to HTML that actually codes the document so that it can, you know how when you open up a web page in the same browser, it's similar no matter what hopefully no matter what browser you're using, no matter what computer you're using it, that's because HTML is guiding the document to behave in a certain way. And so PDFs are the same way. They're actually, if in order to be accessible, they must also be tagged. So that's why the print to PDF doesn't work, because it doesn't add these tags. And so you can see when I click when I click on the select tags here, it identifies, here's all the different tags. And if I click on this one, this title, well, it's not recognizing as a title, it's giving it a tag of P, which is a paragraph. And so in the accessibility tool within Adobe, when you click on something that has failed, you right click on it, one of the options might, if the system kind of already knows what the problem is and has a way to fix it for you, it'll just say fix, and it'll open up a way for you to be able to fix it. So here's where I go, fidelity assessment. So now I can add my title, or I can leave it as is and tell it, yeah, no, this, this isn't an issue. But that, if I want to change it, I go ahead and put it there, and then it passes. The other options, I can tell it, yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is, when I look at my tags, I can also see that this is the order it's reading it in. So it's going to read this, and then it's going to read that, and then it's going to, so I can kind of see, and if for some reason it's trying to read this table ahead of this table title, I can drag it and select it. So that is what this logical reading order is all about. It's just giving you a chance to kind of look through the document and see, was the PDF tagged correctly? Is the screen reader going to read it in the right order? If you are going to include a PDF that is in addition to the template that was provided by OSEP, you will need Adobe Acrobat Pro, because what OSEP is requesting is that for any attachments, you must provide the accessibility report that tells it that all of your that this was that you ran your accessibility, and that it passed. Yes, Andrea.
Cecilia, I just wanted to clarify that Grace sent through a message that the ESEP template for this year is suggested by OSEP. It will definitely be required next year, but in December, OSEP stated that states are encouraged but not required to use the optional template. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear to everybody on the call.
Thank you. Yes. So for ESEP reports and for the SPP APR reports, there is, you don't have to add attachments. They're allowing you to do so. They're allowing this year for you to create your own, but really the best way to go in terms of those reports specifically is to really use the templates that have been provided or the online tool that's been provided by OSEP. If you have to, either attach a PDF or an Excel document as additional information to your SIP or APR SPP work. They are going to require from PDFs the accessibility report, and from other types of documents, they're going to need you to run that accessibility. Oops. The accessibility tool. Hello. Let's go back here. And once all of your issues have been resolved, this is going to give you, no issues or something like that. And then you're going to want to take a screenshot of the accessibility tool that says that there's no issues with this document. So that is what OSEP is going to require for attachments. However, if you are thinking about any information that is going to go on your own websites for your own information as you are disseminating things out to your stakeholders, the best recommendation I can give you, now that we've at Johns Hopkins have spent quite a bit of time looking at this accessibility piece, it is quite broad. So I don't want to give you, I don't want you to walk away thinking that this is something that, oh my God, so convoluted, I could never do this. But I also want to say that it is not as, it is a learning curve. It's not impossible, but it does take some effort, particularly at the beginning. And so I think for OSEP reports, go ahead and use those templates for communicating with your stakeholders, for putting things up on your website, for ensuring that you are complying with accessibility. Get people at your organization and find out sort of where you all are with your understanding of accessibility. Look through the various additional training resources that I'll put on this PowerPoint. And then it would be really helpful if you could come up with a template for your various Word documents or your various PowerPoints, so that you can disseminate that, and you know that no matter who's creating what, it has a really great shot of being accessible. So for example, that is what DaSy has done for us as presenters. They've given us a shell with a PowerPoint that they've sort of set up for us that lets us know, what's the best, what's the recommended font to use at what size, what's the recommended format, and then it has, a variety of layouts available. So while this may not be, the fanciest of things that PowerPoint can do now that it's, getting really fancy, and you can, insert 3D models and just all sorts of things. I recommend that in order to be accessible, to keep your documents, your tables, your images very simple, and to come up with a very basic template that everyone can use comfortably, and identify people within your organization who are going to kind of take it on themselves to know a little more than everyone else regarding accessibility, so that you begin to build that in-house knowledge base, and you can turn to someone when you have questions about accessibility. And again, I am so sorry, looking at the time, that I always think that I'm going to be more concise than I am, but I'll stop talking now.
Cecilia, this is Grace. If you don't mind if I jump in for a second.
Absolutely.
I just want to clarify the message about the OSEP provided templates. They are absolutely optional for this year. So while Cecilia has made the point that they are 508 compliant and designed this year for you all to use if you would like, and it would make it easier to be 508 compliant, they are optional this year. So some states may still want to use the templates that they've been using in the past and transition to this template for next year. It is required this year that if you have attachments that they be 508 compliant, and that you are certifying that they're 508 compliant. So I don't know if anybody from OSEP is on the phone, but they are considered, the templates that have been provided are considered optional for this year, and it's your choice to use it. I didn't want anyone to think, oh my gosh, I have to go redo my APR and put it in this template for this year. You have a transition year.
Thank you, Grace. And I do have one additional question in the chat. Kathleen is asking if the Adobe accessibility tool is available for download at no cost.
Unfortunately, it is not. So we're all familiar with the Adobe, the free Acrobat Reader. That is not what I was referring to today. It is the Adobe Acrobat Professional version, which is a licensed product, which is several $100s, if not $1,000, somewhere around there. And I think, you know, obviously this is something that you would need to invest in at the organizational level to be able to capitalize on the savings of having an enterprise level license that, you know, you have, when you buy more, you know, you have to pay less for each one. If you do not have this pro version, my recommendation is to find someone in your organization who does, and to save all of, if you're going to convert something to PDF, do it by saving as PDF and then hand it off to someone who has this this professional version, and they can then finish up by looking at the, you know, running the accessibility tool, fixing any minor things, and then giving you the report that certifies that it is accessible. If no one in your organization has the pro version, then consider using, you know, consider not, if you're going to need to put something up on your website or you know, maybe leave it as a Word document as long as it's accessible for now, but certainly have a plan. As we saw, accessibility is a continuum. So in order to be level AA, you do have to have this Adobe Acrobat. Maybe, you know, you just kind of make people aware that on your, you know, in your website or on the tools that you're putting together, you're working toward level AA, but right now you're just not there yet. So, you know, and you can be very specific in terms of what pieces of your website are at level AA and what pieces are not. So again, that's just something that you would have to work with your webmaster on. So I hope that helps.
Okay, we are at 2:30 on the dot. Does anybody have any additional questions or thoughts before we wrap up the webinar? Checking the chat. I don't see any questions coming through. So again, we just want to thank you all so very much, especially those of you who attended our part 1. We really are thankful that you came back for part 2. It's always great to see everybody. Best wishes to all. Stay safe and healthy, and thank you so much.
If you have any additional questions, send them to DaSy, please, and they can send them on our way. Thank you.